So protest action in Kenya this week, and the conversation around what has led to these protest actions has really struck quite a resemblance to the ongoing issues here in South Africa. Hello everybody, my name is Chun Hlungwane. So my focus this week is the Kenya protests, which are also called the Gen Z protests, mainly because they're led by young people.
Wednesday, June 25, 2025, Kenyans across all 47 counties flood the streets for a National Day of Remembrance to demand justice. This unified outcry echoes a year of unresolved grievances. But what's fueling these protests? Exactly 1 year ago, the 2024 Anti-Finance Bill protests shook Kenya. Thousands rallied against tax hikes on essentials like bread, sanitary products and fuel, seen as burdens on an already struggling population. The government's response was brutal. Police killed at least 60 people, injured hundreds, and abducted dozens, leaving a scar of impunity and outrage. This month, the death of blogger Albert Odwang in police custody reignited police fury. Allegedly tortured after criticizing a senior officer, his case has become a symbol of unchecked police power. Combined with soaring living costs and systemic corruption, Kenyans seem fed up.
The common theme, from what I've been able to kind of gather on TikTok, Twitter as well, from this particular update or these protests, is that nothing is really changing. That's the sentiment that people of the youth of Kenya are saying, or the protesters are saying. Nothing is changing. There's just absolutely no movement. Things stay the same. Corruption goes unpunished. Service delivery is impacted. There's corruption, blah, 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 right? All of these things ring very true if you understand or follow the landscape of the political landscape of South Africa. All of these things sound way too common, which I think leads me to, or kind of led me to, the concept of apathetic democracy, because both South Africa and Kenya are democratic countries, but apathetic democracy is essentially where there's just no movement, where the political wheels are sort of shifting, but not really shifting forward. It's just kind of all in the same place, which I guess is quite ideal for governments that are just not necessarily in it for the right reasons. And apathetic democracy is caused by a lack in trust from the government, when people just do not trust that the government is a vehicle to bring about the necessary change. And furthermore, when people are dealing with challenges linked to social and economic factors that can also lead to democratic apathy, where they just feel trapped. It's like they don't have anywhere to go. They are living in these conditions, but they actually do not have any hope, because like I said, there is that break in trust in the political structure.
Education is the key, they said. We sat in classes with no windows. We studied in torn uniform on empty stomachs. We believed them. Our parents believed them too. They gave everything. Sold cows, missed meals, broke their back just to see us wear that gown. And years later, here I am, graduated, jobless, hopeless. Turns out, the key only opens doors if your father knows someone. If your uncle is a big man, if your name already matters. And those of us without names, we stay outside, knocking, forgotten. Then they say, start a business. But even small dreams are not safe here. Kanjos will come, or even the goons they send. They won't just destroy your stall. They will scatter your future like trash.
So in the case of South Africa, the only time we do see a change, which I spoke about, is cabinet reshuffles, right? This guy is moving from this ministry to the other, ANC bringing in a new president, blah, blah, blah. But where I think there is an ounce of hope, even if it's very, very, very small, is what we've seen in local government in the past couple of years. Based on the local government view, right, with what has happened in Gauteng, city of Joburg, Tshwane, and all of that, I think that any opposition to the African National Congress, now this is any political party that is not the ANC, that's in opposition to the ANC when it comes to politics in South Africa. That is a huge difference between Kenya's situation and where South Africa finds itself. We might have some similarities in terms of the symptoms of this apathetic democracy, but the difference comes in with the opposition. And I think it's important that we acknowledge and view any other party outside of the ANC as a potential alternative. Don't just think of politics in South Africa as though it is just the African National Congress. That's where we make a huge mistake. You should look at politics as the entire offering. Every single registered party should be considered as an alternative. Of course, not to say every single party you're going to support, but you should look at every single political party as an alternative. Because if we continue to have this one party focus where we think that politics is ANC, and that if ANC says something, that's politics. If ANC disagrees with something, that's not the right way to approach it. That is where we find ourselves having this apathetic democracy, because we've got one view of it, and if that one view does not work, then we end up feeling like we strand. And I think it's important to state that when we want to move away from this apathy in terms of how we view politics, how we view democracy, if we want to move away from apathy where we feel like it's not working for us, it's important to break it down, right? And it's as simple as saying, with just 3 to 4 reforms, if executed and implemented thoroughly to the T, we could see a change, so much that even our own day-to-day lives would make a difference, right? So it's that important that we don't just look at the political landscape from a one-sided view, and it's also very important that we do not give up. Hence, I make the point that you don't just think it's just the ANC. Look at every single political party as an alternative, understand what they stand for, study what they stand for, and we should give them a chance. We should give them a chance in order to get our democratic system in motion, as opposed to a situation where it is completely stagnant. 3 simple reforms as a starting point in order for us to see a change. Number 1 would be a decentralization approach, which I've spoken about in the past year on my channel, where we would look at a situation where certain decision-making powers are cascaded down from national and given over, not even cascaded, given over to local government level, at the least provincial government level. Because we sit in a situation in South Africa today where the police minister is a national competency, yet if you look at a Limpopo versus an Eastern Cape versus a Gauteng, the climate is definitely not the same. Cutting national government, cutting the waste. In Kenya, they've got a minister of interior minister. We've got all kinds of ministers who mean absolutely nothing, who don't make any difference. Take that investment, bring it down to a level, to the local government level. That's what a decentralization approach looks like, and it would make a huge difference. A second reform, right, would be through economic policies. Anything that stands in the way of growth has to go. We only focus on growth, growth, growth. We say in South Africa, if you want to start a business, we give every opportunity for people to succeed. We create a market environment. We provide necessary support. There isn't any bottlenecks. There isn't any red tape. All of those things must go so that if an entrepreneur takes that decision, government does not stand in the way. That's what a growth-focused economic policy would look like, and just making that as a change, doing that thoroughly would make a huge difference. And thirdly, improving security, ensuring that people are safe, improving the justice system. Another thing that I keep thinking about is that not every single charge needs to lead up to someone standing in front of a magistrate to explain themselves. Some charges can be solved with just a fine. You pay a fine in the form of cash or whatever, or you community service. It doesn't all have to lead into a court process. Why? You want to limit the traffic in court so that the big cases, the important cases, are not stuck because, oh yeah, there wasn't enough courtrooms or there wasn't enough people to mind this and this and that. These are just the simple reforms. If you put someone in government who can do these things and actually execute them to the T and thoroughly, you and I would experience a change. And I want to just make a reference with the United States. I know right now with the Republican Party in charge, there's just a lot of animosity around that, but the US is a great example in terms of what a healthy democracy looks like, because if you think about the election cycle in the US, when there's an election, based on what the outcome is, there is going to be a change, whether to the left or to the right. We saw this happening now with the Republican Party winning over the Democrat Party. We immediately saw things like, for example, the border issue, right? To the American people, such things are important and such things actually do make a difference. And that is what we call a healthy democracy, where you know that after an election, whether we go this way or this way, I am going to feel the change as a citizen. That is an example of a healthy democracy. And I'm going to conclude by saying that another problem that I see in South Africa is that the narrative when it comes to politics is still very worrying, right? What I found fascinating with the Kenya issue, just listening to some of the voices and the TikTok videos and all of that, is that the young people in Kenya are pointing directly at the root cause of the problem. They are saying, you are the government, you are the ones that make the decisions, you are the ones that have the power, you hold the power in today's time, it is you guys, therefore you guys must fix the problem. So they know exactly where to direct their frustrations. It is at the government. Hence, even when you look at the government response, they are calling these protests anti-government protests because the Kenyans know exactly where to direct their frustrations. When it comes to issues of government, governance and service delivery, take it directly to government. In South Africa, totally different situation where you still feel that there is a lot of resistance in terms of people looking at the current leaders as the reason why there are these problems. There's some attitude where people almost want to exempt these guys from taking accountability. And that does not help us in any way. This whole thing of disputing whether or not ANC is actually in charge, or maybe the ANC is not really in charge because there's some forces behind the ANC, there's some influence, is completely irrelevant. Why? It is a very same ANC that comes to people each and every single year, makes the promises, tells them that they're going to deliver. Therefore, it is them that should be accountable when things don't go right. When it's time to now face accountability, now we go another direction. And I might have a very simplified and probably very layman way of looking at this. Maybe one would accuse me of not really understanding the intricacies. Whatever. The bottom line, these are the same people that go door to door every single campaign with promises. They list manifestos with all of these things. Therefore, it is only right that people look to them when things don't go right. Right? It's only fair. Another problem in terms of the narrative is this idea that there is no alternative, right? Which, of course, ANC drives this idea quite a lot that there's no alternative. Very, very interesting. And I think denialism also kind of plays a role in this, where people who are maybe just struggling to accept that, hey, man, we need to change. And I often see this a lot in, intellectuals and people, who have high influence and people who've got a high following, who have high followers on Twitter and all of that, like, the esteemed faces and brands when it comes to, conversation, all of that. They have the biggest problem with accepting that things could change. And I think it's simple to understand why. If things do change, maybe that could also discount a lot of their views. And some of them, obviously, they monetize their opinion, they monetize their views. So if things do change drastically in South Africa, then that would kind of take away some of their movements and all of that. So it's another problem where they drive this constant idea using their influence together with the African National Congress, together with the media, that there is no alternative. I disagree. Every single party outside of the African National Congress is an alternative. Cool, I'm going to leave it at that. I think I've said a mouthful. Bottom line, we need to protect the political discourse by standing up against these voices that, one, want to exempt the African National Congress and exempt them from taking accountability, and two, these voices that want to go on and on that there is no alternative. How would you know? South Africa is a democratic society. We've been a democratic society since 1994. Some of us want to reap the rewards of that democracy, not just in terms of short term. We want to reap the rewards for our own children. And where I'm standing, it's not promising. It's not promising that that's possible, because the more we give, the more they take. The more we give, the more they take. We want to be safe. We want opportunities. We want to prosper, right? And it's that simple. So we need to protect the political discourse by challenging these useless ideas that have brought Kenya to the situation where it is now. And Kenya, South Africa, is just one of many examples. So instead of saying change the leadership, how about we change as the voter base? How about we improve and change our perspective as a voter base? That's the difference. It's us. We are the difference. Anyway, thanks for watching. As per usual, please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't and you're coming across my content for the very first time. I'd also appreciate a like. That's also free. Look forward to seeing you again next week when I tackle a new topic here on this channel. Cheers.